Maya had been invisible for 3 whole years at Lincoln High School. Not literally invisible, of course, but she might as well have been. She wore the same gray hoodie almost every day, kept her head down in the hallways, and never spoke unless a teacher called on her. When lunchtime rolled around, she'd grab her brown bag and disappear into the library while everyone else gathered in the noisy cafeteria. Most kids thought she was just shy. Some thought she was stuck up. A few probably didn't even know her name, even though they'd been in the same classes since freshman year. And honestly, that's exactly how Maya wanted it. Being noticed at Lincoln High wasn't usually a good thing. Not if you wanted to survive without trouble. But here's what nobody knew about the quiet girl in the gray hoodie. Every single day after school, while other kids were hanging out at the mall or scrolling through their phones at home, Maya walked straight to her family's martial arts gym 3 blocks from school. Her dad owned the place, and she'd been training there since she was 6 years old. Maya could take down someone twice her size without breaking a sweat. She'd won regional competitions. She knew how to break boards with her bare hands and could do a spinning kick that would make action movie stars jealous. But she never told anyone at school. Not one person. 5 years ago, her older brother Tommy had seen a kid getting beat up behind a gas station. Tommy jumped in to help because that's who he was. He had a good heart. But Tommy didn't know how to fight, and things went terribly wrong. He ended up in the hospital with injuries so bad that he never really recovered. 2 months later, he was gone. After Tommy died, Maya's parents made her promise something. They said she could keep training, could keep getting stronger, but she had to swear she'd never use her skills unless she absolutely had no other choice. Her mom cried when Maya promised. Her dad just held her tight and said, "Walk away first. Always walk away first," so that's what Maya did. For 3 years, she walked away. She ignored the whispers, the occasional shove in the hallway, the times when someone would knock her books out of her hands just for laughs. She kept her promise even when it hurt her pride, even when it made her feel small. Then there was Derek Kane. Everyone called him Tank, and if you went to Lincoln High, you knew exactly who he was. Tank was 17 but looked about 25. He'd been held back twice, which meant he was bigger and older than almost everyone else. He stood at least 6'3" and had shoulders like a linebacker. The guy wore a black leather jacket every single day, even when it was hot outside, just to look more intimidating. Tank had a whole group of guys who followed him around like he was some kind of king. They'd walk down the middle of the hallway, and kids would press themselves against the lockers to get out of the way. Teachers saw what was happening, but most of them just looked the other way. The principal had called him into the office a dozen times, but nothing ever really changed. For the past few months, Tank had started something new. He called it a hallway tax. Basically, he'd corner younger kids and demand money. $5 here, $10 there, sometimes more. He told them it was for protection, which was a joke because the only thing they needed protection from was him. But kids paid up because they were scared. And honestly, who could blame them? Maya had managed to avoid Tank's attention for 3 years. She wasn't flashy, didn't have expensive stuff, and kept to herself. She was basically the opposite of an interesting target. But you know how sometimes bad luck just finds you anyway? It was a Tuesday morning in October and it was pouring rain. Maya was running late because the bus had gotten stuck in traffic. She rushed through the front doors of school, dripping wet, trying to get to homeroom before the late bell. She wasn't paying attention, just moving fast with her head down like always. That's when she crashed straight into Tank. Her shoulder hit his arm, and the coffee he was holding went flying. Hot coffee splashed all over his precious leather jacket. Time seemed to stop. The hallway got quiet. Kids who had been rushing to class suddenly found reasons to slow down and watch. Tank looked down at his jacket, then at Maya. His face did this thing where it went from surprised to angry in about half a second. His friends started laughing nervously, probably wondering what he was going to do. "Are you kidding me right now?" Tank's voice was loud enough that people down the hall turned to look. Maya felt her stomach drop. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, still not making eye contact. "It was an accident." "An accident?" Tank grabbed her backpack and yanked her back toward him. "This jacket cost $200. You know what that means?" Maya knew exactly what it meant. This was his hallway tax thing, but now he had an actual excuse. She could feel everyone watching. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "I don't have any money. I'm sorry about your jacket. I'll wash it if you want, but I need to get to class." She tried to walk away. That was the rule. Walk away first. Always walk away first. She was keeping her promise, but Tank wasn't done. His hand shot out and grabbed her arm hard. He pulled her back and shoved her against the lockers with a loud bang that echoed down the hallway. Maya's backpack hit the floor. For a second, she couldn't breathe. "You don't walk away from me," Tank said, getting right in her face. "You owe me $50 today after school, or we're gonna have a real problem." Maya felt something shift inside her. She'd been pushed before. She'd been grabbed before. But something about the way he'd slammed her into those lockers, the way he was standing over her with his hand raised like he might actually hit her, made her realize something important. She couldn't walk away this time. He wasn't going to let her. The hallway was packed now. Everyone had stopped pretending to do other things. They were just watching, waiting to see what would happen to the quiet girl who dared to spill coffee on Tank's jacket. Maya looked up at him for the first time. Really looked at him. Tank was smiling, thinking he'd won before anything even started. He had no idea what was about to happen. Neither did anyone else, but they were all about to find out. Tank's hand was still raised, and Maya could see it coming toward her face. Everything seemed to move in slow motion, like someone had pressed a pause button on the whole world. She could hear her dad's voice in her head, crystal clear like he was standing right next to her. "Only when you have no other choice, Maya. Only then." She'd tried to apologize. She'd tried to walk away. She'd done everything she was supposed to do. But Tank had grabbed her, shoved her against the lockers, and now he was about to hit her in front of the entire school. This was it. This was the moment her dad had warned her about. The moment when walking away wasn't an option anymore. Maya's body knew what to do before her brain caught up. 3 years of training, thousands of hours in the gym, all of it kicked in like muscle memory. When Tank's hand came down, she moved. Her arm came up and redirected his strike to the side. Tank's eyes went wide with surprise. He wasn't expecting any resistance, especially not from her. But Maya wasn't done. She grabbed his wrist, turned her body, and used all of his forward momentum against him. Then she executed a perfect hip throw. Tank probably weighed about 220 pounds, but weight doesn't matter when someone knows what they're doing. His feet left the ground, and for just a second, this huge guy who terrorized the whole school was flying through the air. Then he hit the floor with a crash so loud that it echoed down the entire hallway. The impact knocked the wind out of him. He lay there gasping, trying to figure out what had just happened. But Maya didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Her training had taught her that if someone attacked you, you didn't just knock them down. You made sure they couldn't get back up and hurt you again. She dropped down and locked his arm behind his back, applying pressure to his shoulder joint in a way that made any movement incredibly painful. It was a technique she'd practiced 10,000 times, maybe more. She knew exactly how much pressure to use. Enough to control him completely, but not enough to actually injure him. "I don't want to hurt you," Maya said, and her voice was surprisingly calm. "Just let me go to class." Tank tried to pull free. He was strong, way stronger than her, but that didn't matter. The harder he struggled, the more the joint lock tightened. His face turned red, partly from effort and partly from pure humiliation. Here he was, the guy who ran the school, pinned to the floor by the quiet girl nobody even noticed. All around them, phones were out. Everyone was recording. Tank's friends just stood there with their mouths open, completely frozen. They'd seen their leader destroy people for 3 years, and now he was the one getting destroyed. Nobody knew what to do. "Get her off me." Tank yelled at his friends, but none of them moved. What were they supposed to do? Attack her? They'd just watched her throw Tank like he weighed nothing. Tank kept struggling, but every time he moved, Maya adjusted the lock. She wasn't being mean about it or showing off. She was just doing what she'd been trained to do. Control the situation. Protect yourself. Use minimum force necessary. The whole thing probably lasted about 10 seconds, but it felt like forever to everyone watching. Tank finally stopped fighting. His face was pressed against the dirty hallway floor, and he did something that nobody at Lincoln High had ever seen him do before. He tapped the ground twice with his free hand. Maya recognized it immediately. In martial arts competitions, tapping means you submit. You're done. You give up. She released him right away and stood up, grabbing her backpack from where it had fallen. Her hands weren't even shaking. Tank rolled over and sat up, breathing hard. His friends rushed over to help him, but he shoved them away. Maya didn't say anything else. She just adjusted her hoodie, slung her backpack over her shoulder, and walked toward her classroom like she was going to be late for a test. Behind her, the hallway exploded. Did you see that? Oh my God, someone send me that video. She just destroyed Tank. Who even is she? Maya could hear all of it, but she kept walking. Her heart was pounding now that the adrenaline was starting to fade. Her hands started shaking a little, but she shoved them in her hoodie pocket so nobody would notice. She'd just done the one thing she'd promised her parents she'd never do unless she had absolutely no choice. But she'd had no choice, right? He grabbed her first. He shoved her. She was just defending herself. That's what she kept telling herself as she walked into her classroom and slid into her seat. Her homeroom teacher, Mrs. Patterson, gave her a look because she was late, but didn't say anything. The late bell hadn't rung yet anyway. Maya pulled out her notebook and tried to focus on looking normal. But her hands were still shaking. She'd just thrown the school bully like a rag doll in front of at least 50 people. There was no going back to being invisible now. Down the hall, Tank finally got to his feet. His arm hurt, his pride hurt worse, and his leather jacket was still covered in coffee. But the physical pain wasn't the worst part. The worst part was seeing all those phones pointed at him. All those faces staring at him with shock and excitement and barely hidden smiles. For 3 years, Tank had been the one everyone was afraid of. He'd built his entire reputation on being bigger, scarier, and more violent than anyone else. That reputation had gotten him everything he wanted: respect, fear, power, money from kids too scared to say no, and the quiet girl in the gray hoodie had just destroyed all of it in about 10 seconds. "Come on, man," one of his friends said, trying to help him up. Tank shoved him away again. "Don't touch me." His voice cracked a little, which made everything worse. He could see kids trying not to laugh. Some weren't even trying to hide it. They were just laughing openly at him. At Tank, the guy who'd made their lives miserable for years. By the time the late bell rang and everyone scattered to their classrooms, Tank was still standing in the hallway. His friends had disappeared. The coffee stain on his jacket was drying into a dark, sticky mess, and he could already imagine what was happening with those videos. They were probably already spreading through the whole school. By lunch, everyone would have seen it. By tomorrow, kids at other schools would probably see it too. Tank walked to the bathroom and locked himself in a stall. His arm was sore where Maya had locked it. His back hurt from hitting the floor, but mostly he just felt hollow, like someone had reached inside him and scooped out everything that made him Tank. In her English class 3 doors down, Maya was trying very hard to focus on the book in front of her, but she couldn't stop replaying what had just happened. She'd been so careful for 3 years, so careful to keep her head down, to avoid trouble, to honor her promise to her parents. And now, in less than 10 seconds, everything had changed. She knew what was coming next. The principal would call her in. Tank's parents would probably get involved. There would be questions and meetings and consequences. But right now, sitting in her usual seat by the window, Maya realized something strange. For the first time in 3 years at Lincoln High, she didn't feel invisible anymore. She wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a terrible thing, but there was no going back now. The quiet girl had shown everyone what she could do, and nothing would ever be the same again. By lunchtime, Maya's life had completely turned upside down. She walked into the cafeteria planning to grab her usual spot in the library, but 3 girls from her math class stopped her at the door. Maya, right? The tallest one, Katie, was practically bouncing with excitement. That was insane. "Where did you learn to do that?" Maya just mumbled something about having to go and tried to move past them, but more kids were gathering. People who'd never said 2 words to her before were suddenly treating her like some kind of celebrity. Phones were out. Everyone was watching the video, and they kept replaying the moment Tank hit the floor over and over again. "Can you teach me how to do that?" another girl asked. "Tank's buddies have been bothering me for weeks." Maya felt overwhelmed. This was exactly what she'd been trying to avoid for 3 years. All she wanted was to disappear back into the library and pretend this morning never happened. But then the cafeteria doors opened, and everyone got quiet. It was Mrs. Chen, the principal's secretary, and she looked serious. "Maya Rodriguez, Principal Henderson needs to see you right now." The walk to the principal's office felt like walking to her own execution. Maya knew she'd defended herself. She knew Tank had grabbed her first, had shoved her against the lockers, but she also knew how these things usually went. The kid who fights back often gets in just as much trouble as the person who started it, sometimes more. When she walked into Principal Henderson's office, her stomach dropped. Tank was already there, sitting in a chair with his parents on either side of him. And he was wearing a sling on his arm. Maya's eyes widened. She hadn't hurt him that badly. She knew she hadn't. The sling was obviously fake, probably his parents' idea to make things look worse than they were. Tank's father stood up the second Maya walked in. He was wearing an expensive suit and had the kind of face that meant business. "That's her," he said, pointing at Maya like she was a criminal. "That's the girl who assaulted my son. Mr. Kane, please sit down," Principal Henderson said tiredly. He gestured for Maya to take a seat on the other side of his desk. "We're going to handle this properly." Maya sat down and tried to keep her face neutral, but her heart was racing. Where were her parents? Didn't she get to have someone here with her too? As if reading her mind, Principal Henderson said, "Your mother is on her way, Maya. She should be here soon." Tank's mother leaned forward. Unlike her husband, she looked more worried than angry. "Principal Henderson, our son has a sprained shoulder. He had to go to the emergency room this morning. This girl used some kind of martial arts on him. That's assault. We want her expelled and we're considering pressing charges." Maya felt sick. Expelled? Charges? All because she'd defended herself? "Let me be very clear about something," Tank's father added, pulling out his phone. "I'm an attorney and I know exactly what kind of case we have here. My son has injuries. We have medical documentation, and there are dozens of witnesses who saw your student attack him unprovoked." Unprovoked? The word came out of Maya's mouth before she could stop it. Everyone turned to look at her. "He grabbed me first. He shoved me against the lockers." "That's not what my son told us," Tank's mother said, but her voice was uncertain. She looked at Tank, who was staring at the floor. Tank's father wasn't backing down. "My son said you bumped into him. He asked you to pay for the damage to his jacket and you attacked him. That's assault, young lady." Maya felt angry tears starting to burn behind her eyes, but she refused to cry. Not here, not in front of Tank and his parents and the principal. She'd done the right thing. She knew she had. The office door opened and Maya's mom rushed in, still wearing her scrubs from her nursing shift. Right behind her was Maya's dad, and he was still wearing his martial arts instructor uniform. They must have both dropped everything to get here. "Sorry we're late," her mom said, a little breathless. "Traffic was terrible." "What's going on?" Principal Henderson explained the situation while Maya's parents listened. Her mom held her hand tight. Her dad's face got more and more serious, but he didn't interrupt. When the principal finished, Tank's father immediately jumped back in with his threats about lawsuits and criminal charges. That's when Maya's dad spoke for the first time. His English had a thick accent, but his words were clear and strong. "Before we talk about charges, I think we should look at what really happened." "We know what happened," Tank's father shot back. "Your daughter attacked my son." "No," Maya's dad said calmly. "We should look at the video and the security cameras." Principal Henderson shifted uncomfortably. "The security cameras? You have cameras in the hallways, yes?" Maya's dad wasn't asking. He was stating a fact. "So we can see everything. We can see who grabbed who first. We can see the truth." Tank's parents exchanged a glance. Tank slumped lower in his chair. Principal Henderson sighed and turned his computer monitor so everyone could see it. He pulled up the security footage from that morning and pressed play. The video was silent but showed everything. It showed Maya rushing through the hallway, bumping into Tank accidentally. It showed her apologizing. It showed Tank grabbing her backpack, yelling at her. It showed Maya trying to walk away. And then it showed Tank grabbing her arm and shoving her hard against the lockers. Then it showed what Maya did next. But now, with the full context, it looked completely different. It didn't look like an attack. It looked like self-defense. Tank's mother put her hand over her mouth. Tank's father's confident expression started to crack, but Principal Henderson wasn't done. He fast-forwarded through several weeks of footage, showing scene after scene of Tank and his friends cornering younger kids, clearly demanding money. The hallway tax that everyone knew about but nobody had been able to prove. Until now. "This has been going on for months," Principal Henderson said quietly. "I've suspected it, but we've never had evidence before. Until today." Tank's father looked at his son. "Derek, is this true? Have you been taking money from other students?" Tank didn't answer. He just sat there staring at his lap. Maya's dad spoke again, his voice still calm but firm. "My daughter could have hurt your son badly. She is trained since she was 6 years old. She knows how to break bones, how to cause real injury, but she didn't. She used minimum force. She controlled him until he submitted. Then she let him go immediately. This is what we teach. Defend yourself, but never be the aggressor. Never use more force than necessary. The room was quiet for a long moment. Tank's mother was crying softly now. His father looked like someone had knocked the wind out of him. All his threats about lawsuits and charges had evaporated once he saw the truth on that screen. Principal Henderson turned to Maya. Maya, I need to ask you something directly. Did you feel like you were in danger? Maya nodded. He was bigger than me, stronger than me. He grabbed me and slammed me into the lockers, and his hand was raised like he was going to hit me. I tried to walk away first. I really did, but he wouldn't let me. The principal nodded slowly, then turned to Tank's parents. Here's what's going to happen. Derek will be suspended for 1 week. When he returns, he'll be on strict probation. He'll also be required to attend counseling sessions. If there's one more incident, one more report of intimidation or extortion, he'll be expelled. As for Maya, I see clear evidence of self-defense. She won't face any disciplinary action. Tank's father started to argue, but his wife put her hand on his arm and shook her head. She looked at Maya with an expression that was hard to read. Sadness, maybe, or guilt. We won't press charges, she said quietly, and we expect you won't either. Maya's parents looked at each other, having a silent conversation. Finally, her dad nodded. We won't press charges, but your son needs help. Real help, not just counseling. He needs to learn respect, discipline, consequences. They all stood up to leave. As Maya walked past Tank, he looked up at her for just a second. The cocky, intimidating guy from this morning was gone. In his place was just a 17-year-old kid who looked lost and scared and small. Maya didn't feel victorious. She just felt tired. Outside the principal's office, her dad pulled her into a tight hug. You did the right thing, he whispered. Tommy would be proud. That's when Maya finally let herself cry. The week that Tank was suspended turned out to be one of the strangest of Maya's life. Suddenly, she couldn't walk 10 feet without someone stopping her. Kids who'd never even looked at her before wanted to be her friend. People asked her to sit with them at lunch. Her phone, which usually stayed silent all day, kept buzzing with friend requests and messages. On Wednesday, 3 girls approached her in the library. Maya recognized them immediately. These were girls who'd kept their heads down just like she had. Girls who'd learned to be invisible to survive. Maya, the shortest one, Riley, looked nervous. Can we talk to you for a minute? Maya closed her book and nodded. The 3 girls sat down across from her. That thing you did to Tank, Riley continued. Could you teach us how to do that? My little brother is starting high school next year, and I'm so scared Tank's friends are going to target him. The second girl, Jordan, jumped in. Tank's been taking my lunch money since freshman year. $20 a week. I've been too scared to tell anyone, but after seeing that video, she trailed off. The third girl didn't say anything. She just showed Maya her arm. There were bruises there, finger-shaped marks from where someone had grabbed her too hard. Maya felt something shift in her chest. She'd spent 3 years avoiding attention, avoiding conflict, staying invisible. But maybe being invisible meant letting bad things happen. Maybe her brother had been right to step in that day, even though things went wrong. Maybe there was a reason she'd learned to defend herself. I'll talk to my dad, Maya said. We run a gym. Maybe we can start a class or something. The girls' faces lit up, and Maya realized something. For 3 years, she'd been protecting herself by hiding. But what if she could protect other people by teaching them what she knew? By Friday, word had spread. 12 students had asked about self-defense classes. The school newspaper wanted to interview her. A local news station had even called the principal asking about the viral video of the teenage martial arts expert defending herself. Maya turned down the interview. She didn't want to be famous. She just wanted things to go back to normal. But normal wasn't an option anymore. That ship had sailed the moment Tank hit the floor. When Monday came and Tank returned to school, everything was different for him too. His friends had abandoned him. The group of guys who used to follow him everywhere had scattered. Some had attached themselves to other popular kids. Others just pretended they'd never been part of Tank's crew in the first place. Maya watched from across the courtyard as Tank walked through the front doors alone. No leather jacket today, just a plain gray hoodie. He looked smaller somehow, even though he was still 6'3". He kept his head down and headed straight for his locker without making eye contact with anyone. At lunch, Tank sat by himself in the corner of the cafeteria. Kids walked past his table without a second glance. A few of them whispered and laughed, clearly enjoying his downfall. One guy, a freshman who'd probably been one of Tank's victims, deliberately bumped into his table hard enough to spill his drink. "Oops," the kid said with a smirk. "My bad." Tank didn't react. He just cleaned up the mess and went back to eating. Or trying to eat. Mostly he just pushed food around his tray. Maya saw all of this from her new table. She was sitting with Riley, Jordan, and a few other students now. People still called it the quiet kids table, but it wasn't so quiet anymore. They were making plans for the self-defense club, talking about how many people might join, what they would need. But Maya couldn't stop watching Tank. She knew what it felt like to be alone in a crowded cafeteria. She'd spent 3 years in that exact position. And yeah, Tank had done terrible things. He'd hurt people, scared people, taken their money. He'd grabbed her and shoved her against the lockers. She had every right to hate him. But watching him sit there looking lost and defeated, she kept thinking about what her dad always said. Strength without compassion is just cruelty. And compassion without strength is just weakness. You need both. Before she could talk herself out of it, Maya stood up. Her new friends looked at her in confusion. "Where are you going?" Riley asked. Maya grabbed her lunch tray. "I'll be right back." She walked across the cafeteria and people noticed. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Everyone watched as the girl who'd taken down the school bully walked straight toward his table. They probably thought she was going to confront him, maybe humiliate him in front of everyone the way he'd humiliated so many others. Maya sat down across from Tank without asking permission. The cafeteria got so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Tank looked up, surprised and maybe a little scared. "What do you want?" "My brother died 5 years ago," Maya said. She hadn't planned what she was going to say, but the words just came out. His name was Tommy. He saw some guys beating up a kid behind a gas station and he tried to stop them. But Tommy didn't know how to defend himself. They hurt him really bad. He was in the hospital for 2 months before... She stopped, took a breath. "Before he died." Tank just stared at her, not understanding why she was telling him this. "That's why I learned martial arts," Maya continued. "That's why I trained every single day for years. So what happened to Tommy wouldn't happen to me, but also so I'd never be the person who hurt someone the way those guys hurt him." "Okay," Tank said slowly. "So why are you telling me this?" "Because this morning, I watched some freshman kid pour his drink on your table. I saw people laughing at you, and I realized something. What I did to you in that hallway. I could have broken your arm. I could have seriously hurt you. But I didn't. Do you understand why?" Tank shook his head. "Because you can change," Maya said. "My brother believed everyone deserved a second chance. That's why he stepped in to help that kid even though it was dangerous. He believed people could be better than their worst moment." Tank's jaw tightened. "I don't deserve a second chance. You saw those security videos. You know what I've been doing." "Yeah, I do," Maya agreed. "And I'm not saying what you did is okay. I'm not forgiving you. The people you hurt, they might never forgive you. But sitting here feeling sorry for yourself isn't going to change anything. So what am I supposed to do?" Tank's voice cracked a little. "Everyone hates me. My friends are gone. I'm the joke of the whole school now." Maya thought about it for a moment. Then she said something that surprised even herself. "My family's gym offers classes for teenagers who've had trouble. Kids who've been in fights, gotten suspended, that kind of thing. Some of the kids you bullied actually come to those classes now, learning to defend themselves so nobody can push them around again." Tank laughed bitterly. "And you think I should come? Face all the people I hurt? That sounds like hell." "It would be hell," Maya admitted. "You'd have to bow to them. Show them respect. Start over as a complete beginner even though you're bigger and older than most of them. My dad wouldn't give you any special treatment. You'd have to earn every single bit of progress." "Why would I do that to myself?" Maya stood up, picking up her tray. "Because sitting here alone, being miserable, letting people treat you the way you treated them, that's the easy way. It lets you feel like a victim. But actually changing, actually facing what you did and becoming a better person, that's hard. That takes real strength." She started to walk away, then turned back. "My brother died because he tried to help someone. I don't want his death to mean nothing. The class meets Tuesday and Thursday nights at 7. If you show up, you show up. If you don't, you don't. But either way, you need to figure out who you want to be. Because who you were, that person is done." Maya walked back to her table where her friends were staring at her with wide eyes. Did you just invite Tank to our self-defense class? Jordan asked in disbelief. I don't know what I just did, Maya admitted. Maybe something really stupid. She looked back at Tank one more time. He was still sitting there staring at his lunch tray, but something about his expression had changed. He looked less defeated and more thoughtful, like maybe, just maybe, he was considering what she'd said. Maya had no idea if he'd actually show up. Part of her hoped he wouldn't. It would be easier if he just faded away and she never had to think about him again. But another part of her, the part that sounded like her brother Tommy, hoped he'd find the courage to try. 3 months had passed since that morning in the hallway, and Lincoln High School felt like a completely different place. Maya's self-defense club had grown from 3 nervous girls to 32 students meeting twice a week. The school had given them permission to use the gym after hours, and Maya's dad came to help teach whenever he could. It wasn't just about learning how to throw punches or escape grabs. Maya made sure of that. Every class started with her dad talking about respect, discipline, and knowing when to walk away. He told them stories about people who'd let their skills make them arrogant, who'd started fights instead of avoiding them, and how that path only led to more pain. Power without wisdom is dangerous, he'd say in his accented English. You are learning to protect yourselves, not to hurt others. Remember the difference. The students loved him. They also loved Maya, though she still felt weird about being the center of attention. But she was learning to accept it. If being visible meant she could help people feel safer, feel stronger, maybe it was worth it. What nobody expected, though, was Tank showing up that first Tuesday night. Maya had honestly thought he wouldn't come. It had been 3 days since their conversation in the cafeteria, and she hadn't seen him approach her or ask about the class. She figured he'd decided it was too hard, too embarrassing, or just not worth it. But at 7 o'clock, right when class was about to start, the gym door opened. Tank walked in wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. Every single person in that room stopped and stared. Some of them were kids he'd taken money from. Others were kids he'd shoved around in the hallways. One girl, Sophie, had been so scared of him that she'd started taking different routes to class just to avoid him. The room got tense. Maya's dad looked at her with a question in his eyes. This was her call. Maya walked over to Tank. He looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to bolt out the door. His hands were shoved in his pockets, and he couldn't seem to meet anyone's eyes. You came, Maya said. Yeah. Tank's voice was quiet, nothing like the loud, threatening tone he'd used in the hallways. You said Tuesday at 7, so here I am. Did you bring gym shoes? Maya's dad asked, walking over. Tank nodded and held up a plastic bag. Good. Change your shoes, then line up with everyone else. You'll start at the back row. Maya's dad's expression was serious. And Derek? In this dojo, everyone starts equal. I don't care how big you are or what happened outside these walls. In here, you follow the rules and you respect everyone. Understood? Yes, sir. That first class was awkward. Tank had to bow to the class when he was introduced, which meant bowing to people he'd bullied. He had to partner with Sophie for one drill, and she looked terrified until Maya's dad quietly reassigned her to work with someone else. Tank ended up partnering with Maya's dad instead, who didn't go easy on him. By the end of class, Tank was sweating hard and breathing heavy. The techniques that came naturally to smaller students were difficult for him. His size worked against him. He was slow, clumsy, and clearly frustrated. But he kept trying. He didn't complain. He didn't make excuses. He just worked. When class ended, most students left quickly. A few gave Tank dirty looks on their way out. Riley paused near him and said, Don't think showing up to one class fixes what you did. Then she left too. Tank sat on the bench, changing back into his regular shoes. Maya sat down next to him. That was rough, she said. Yeah. Tank tied his shoe slowly. Everyone hates me here, I get it. But your dad said I have to earn their respect. So I guess I'll keep coming until I do, or until someone tells me to leave. Why are you really here? Maya asked. Is it just because you feel guilty? Tank was quiet for a long minute. Then he said, When I was suspended, I had to sit in meetings with this counselor 3 times. She made me talk about why I did the things I did, why I hurt people, and I told her it made me feel powerful. Like I mattered. My parents are always working, always busy with important stuff. My older sister is this genius who goes to Stanford, and I'm just the dumb kid who got held back twice. He looked at his hands. But when I walked down that hallway and people moved out of my way, when they did what I told them, I felt like I was somebody. You were somebody, Maya said. You were the person everyone was scared of. Yeah, Tank's voice got quieter. My counselor asked me if that's really who I wanted to be. If that's what I wanted people to remember about me. And honestly, I didn't know how to answer her, because being scary was the only thing I was good at. He looked at Maya directly for the first time, but then you said that thing about real strength, about how facing what I did would be harder than just feeling sorry for myself. And I realized you were right. Sitting alone at lunch, having people laugh at me, that wasn't changing anything. It was just waiting for high school to be over so I could run away and pretend none of this happened. So you came here to change? I came here because I don't know who I am if I'm not Tank, he admitted. And I'm hoping your dad can help me figure that out. Over the next few months, Tank kept showing up. Twice a week, every week. He was terrible at first. His size made him slow and he got frustrated easily. But he didn't quit. He listened to Maya's dad. He practiced the techniques. And slowly, very slowly, he started to get better. More importantly, he started to change in other ways. He apologized to Sophie one night after class, telling her he was sorry for scaring her. She didn't forgive him, just nodded and walked away, but Tank didn't seem to expect forgiveness. He just seemed relieved to have said it. He apologized to others too, one by one. Some accepted it. Some told him where he could shove his apology. One kid punched him in the arm and said, "We're even now." Tank just took it. At school, Tank was different too. He kept his head down, didn't cause trouble, and actually started doing his homework. His grades improved from failing to barely passing. It wasn't much, but it was something. People still avoided him, still whispered when he walked by, but the fear was gone. Now it was just awkwardness and lingering resentment. The real test came on a random Thursday afternoon. Maya was walking through the courtyard when she saw a group of 3 juniors surrounding a freshman boy. They were doing exactly what Tank used to do, demanding money, being threatening. The freshman looked terrified. Maya was about to step in when someone else got there first. Tank walked up calmly and positioned himself between the bullies and the freshmen. "Leave him alone," he said firmly. The 3 juniors laughed. "Oh, look, it's Tank, or should we call you Tanked, since that girl knocked you flat on your back?" The one who said it, Brandon, had been part of Tank's old crew. "You don't run this school anymore, man. So why don't you keep walking?" "I'm not running anything," Tank said. "I'm just asking you to leave him alone." "Or what? You gonna fight all 3 of us?" Brandon pushed Tank's shoulder. "Everyone saw what happened to you. You're not scary anymore." Tank didn't push back. He just stood his ground. "You're right. I'm not scary. And honestly, I'm glad. Being scary made me into someone I'm ashamed of. But I learned something these past few months. It's a lot harder to walk away than it is to fight. Takes more guts. Whatever, man. You're soft now." Brandon looked at the freshman. "But we're not. You owe us." "No, he doesn't." Tank's voice was calm but firm. "And if you keep this up, I'm going to the principal with all the security footage the same way Maya did with me." "Your choice." The 3 juniors looked at each other uncertain. This wasn't the Tank they expected. This Tank wasn't threatening them or trying to out-intimidate them. He was just calmly standing there, protecting someone weaker, willing to take whatever they threw at him. Finally, Brandon spat on the ground near Tank's feet. "You're pathetic." Then he and his friends walked away. The freshman looked up at Tank with wide eyes. "Thanks," he said quietly. "Don't thank me," Tank replied. "Just, if anyone else bothers you, tell a teacher. Or come to the self-defense class Tuesday nights. Don't handle it like I used to handle things, okay?" The kid nodded and hurried away. That's when Tank noticed Maya standing nearby. She'd watched the whole thing. "How long have you been there?" he asked. "Long enough." Maya walked over. "That was brave. You could have just kept walking." "Yeah, but..." Tank shrugged. "Your brother didn't keep walking. And look what happened to him. He did the right thing even though it was hard. Even though it cost him everything." He looked at Maya seriously. "I spent 3 years being the person people needed protection from. Maybe I can't fix that, but maybe I can at least try to be the person who does the protecting instead. It won't be easy," Maya warned. "People don't forget. Some of them will never forgive you." "I know." Tank started walking toward the school. "But your dad says that respect is earned through actions, not words." So I guess I'll just keep acting until either people start to see me differently, or I graduate and get a fresh start somewhere else. By the end of the school year, Tank had become something unexpected. He wasn't popular, he wasn't feared. He was just there. Some people still hated him. Others had begun to cautiously accept him. He'd become an assistant at the self-defense class, demonstrating techniques and helping newer students. Maya's dad had promoted him to yellow belt, which meant he'd shown real progress. Not just in skills, but in attitude and discipline. "You've come far," her dad told him at the ceremony. "But the journey is long. Keep walking." On graduation day, Maya walked across the stage to receive her diploma and a martial arts scholarship to a university 3 states away. The crowd cheered for her. She'd become something of a legend at Lincoln High. Tank walked across that same stage a few minutes later. His parents were there, actually paying attention to him for once. The crowd was mostly quiet except for a few people, including Maya and her family, who clapped. It wasn't much, but it was more than Tank expected. After the ceremony, Tank found Maya outside. "I heard about your scholarship. That's amazing, thanks. What about you? What's next?" Tank smiled, and it was genuine. "Community college. I need to get my grades up if I want to transfer anywhere decent. But I'm also going to keep training at your dad's gym. He said I can help teach the beginner class if I keep improving." "That's great," Maya said, and she meant it. "I know I don't say this enough, but thank you." Tank's voice was serious. "That day you threw me in the hallway? That was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was on a really bad path and you stopped me. Then you gave me a chance to be different, so thank you." Maya thought about her brother Tommy, about how he'd stepped in to help someone and paid the ultimate price, about how she'd almost let his death make her invisible and afraid. But instead, she'd found a way to honor his memory by being strong enough to protect herself and compassionate enough to help others change. "You did the hard part," Maya told Tank. "I just showed you the door. You're the one who walked through it." Years later, people would still watch that viral video. The quiet girl throwing the school bully in 10 seconds flat. It had millions of views. But what they didn't see was what happened after. They didn't see the hard work, the awkward conversations, the slow, painful process of someone choosing to be better. They didn't see Tank showing up twice a week, every week earning back respect one small action at a time. They didn't see Maya learning that strength wasn't just about knowing how to fight, but about knowing when to offer a hand instead. The video showed 10 seconds that changed everything. But the real story was everything that came after. Because change doesn't happen in 10 seconds. It happens in the choice to show up day after day even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's the part worth remembering.